Hello, and welcome back to Iron Butterfly Podcast. My name is Megan Jaffer.
And I'm Katie Hopkins, and we'll be your hosts.
We created Iron Butterfly Podcast in honor of Eloise Page, the original Iron Butterfly. And on this very special season, we are going inside our first documentary feature film titled The Power We Hold: Stories from Women Spies. This film features 10 of the most powerful women you've never heard of, and this season, we'll get up close and personal with each of them. We hope you find their stories as powerful as we do.
Skyline Scientific is delighted to sponsor this episode of Iron Butterfly Podcast. I'm Joy Barker, founder of Skyline Scientific. When I founded my company 10 years ago, I wanted to create a place of excellence for both my employees and customers alike. At Skyline Scientific, we use our team's deep technical knowledge and provide highly technical solutions to our nation's hardest problems. A lot of what we do is taking complex mission needs and turning them into technical solutions that actually make a difference. What makes Skyline Scientific different is that we're a small company built with integrity, purpose, and high standards. We are very selective about who we hire because we're not just looking for people with skills. We're looking for unicorns, people who are exceptional at what they do, are aligned with our values, and excited to be part of something truly meaningful. We don't just fill seats. We build rockstar teams that our customers can really count on. Skyline employs some of the most brightest minds in the scientific and analytic community, and we honor that talent by offering exceptional benefits to our exceptional people. We invest in our people, their skills, and their development, ensuring they are always prepared for any national security challenge. Skyline Scientific is delighted to sponsor this episode featuring our friend and consultant, Chitra Sivanandam. We love this series. It shares stories of how women achieve greatness in their field. During Chitra's 25 years in the defense and intelligence community, her focus has been on creating highly technical solutions for our national security. In her current role as president and founder of Living Dino, she advises and supports technical companies as they navigate bringing their innovations into the federal government sector. If you like this episode and you like the way Chitra thinks, like we do, Skyline Scientific is the place for you. Learn more about us at skylinescientific.com.
All right, Chitra, welcome back to Iron Butterfly.
Thanks for having me. You look like a natural.
So we're here just to remind the listeners, because this year in 2026, we're releasing our documentary about 10 women in the intelligence community. And you, my friend, are one of them. Whoop, and when we, in 2025, we showed a version of the doc to a focus group. A couple focus groups, actually, their number one piece of feedback was they wanted to learn more about everyone. And so here we are. We want to know more about Chitra.
I'm learning all the time, too.
So, I'm going to speak for myself because obviously I love storytelling. I love hearing stories. I love learning about people. But I think... and it just makes sense, too, that we start here. I think your family background and history and the way you grew up is just fascinating. You have so many awesome stories. And I would love, I don't even think there's a place to start. Just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and the kind of family dynamic you grew up in and how you got interested in STEM, but just take us through all of that.
So I grew up outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in Middleburg Heights, for anybody who knows that.
I'm going to go woo woo.
Yeah, shout out
Middleburg
to all
Heights.
our Cleveland listeners.
Yeah.
And basically lived in the same house most of our life growing up. My parents came over to the U.S. in the 60s. So my dad, when he first became a U.S. citizen, which at that time, given current politics, was not that difficult. And like the day he was allowed to, I think he like signed up to go get his citizenship. And then he started, bringing his friends over and sponsoring folks and trying to like, a lot of his college buddies ended up coming over because he was like, hey, look, there's jobs over here, there's jobs over there. So we grew up in Ohio around kind of our fake version of a family where we're not all actually related. Maybe some of them are related, but for all intents and purposes, we were family. And we all had parties every weekend. People would potluck food, and literally it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday at somebody's house, and the next weekend's at another house, next weekend's another house. And that was just normal for us growing up. We were also really tight with like all of our neighbors. So it's like we could be at our house or we just walk into our neighbors' houses. And at that time, there was a lot of, immigrant families. I think our neighborhood was a lot of Italian and Polish immigrants and Ukrainian immigrants at that time too. And so we would just, go to people's houses there. I remember a time when we lost our keys on the way home from the bus in the snow, and we just knocked on the neighbors' doors and like walked in, hung out there until my parents came home, because you could do that back then, and then go to the house. So, and I say that because like the way we thought about family was always like there was all kinds of people that we considered to be in our family.
I think that's
The neighbors
also
included.
like a Midwestern thing too.
Yeah.
Growing up in the Midwest, like I just walked into my neighbor's house. Like there
Yeah.
wasn't even knocking sometimes. I'd be like, hey, I'm here. It
Yeah.
was just like a thing.
Yeah, and it's like I think the quintessential stories on like getting like milk or sugar. It was more than that. It's like, oh, the lasagna was made, so great, bringing home some, and then back and forth, right? And that was just normal.
I also think it's cool that you grew up in this sort of like melting pot of a community. Like it sounds like some of like your dad was kind of this centerpiece in some ways. Like he would invite his friends and like you guys
Yeah.
had that community built in, but there were a lot of other people from completely different countries and completely different backgrounds who were also just like part of your family.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And like, so we definitely had, there's a ton more if you had to like balance the scale on like the people that we knew from India that all immigrated and had kids like us. But then there was like a ton more on the other side of the spectrum too. And like, I think even our house, like there was this family that we had known all of our lives, at least. They actually were Ukrainian and met in the war in the concentration camps. They both lost their families. They I think decided to get together after everything happened. They wouldn't talk much about what all happened and what the stories were. We would try to ask questions, but you'd get very little. That's as much as we knew. But I think the story goes that my dad worked with, we call him George Uncle. So her dad worked with George Uncle for a while, and he gave my dad the money my dad needed for a down payment for the house, and then that's how we bought the house.
Wow.
And we just I've known them forever. And then even when like they passed, I think she passed away before he passed away. Like I might have been messing up the order. But then like between like their kids or their grandkids and us, we're like, okay, well they had a bunch of cats, so I'm like, okay, I'll take home this cat. So everybody took home a cat.
Wow.
And I brought this cat home to meet my cats. He didn't really get along with my cats, but it's like whatever. Like cats need a home, and this is and it all makes perfect sense at some point somehow. But you're like, yeah, that was just how we did things, and that's all normal. And probably a mixture of that is like immigrant culture, and a mixture of that is Midwestern culture, and then a mixture of that is just personalities of my parents and the other families that we all knew growing up. I was like, nobody really thinks about where you do that or how you do that, right? You're just like, well, like somebody needs something, you do it. Maybe it's lasting, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Well, for people who, I mean, most of our listeners do not know you, but
Yet.
that that is literally who you are to the core, right? Is, connecting people and building connections and the life of the party and like always down to do something. Like I never actually sometimes I'm the one who's like, I don't want to do that. And you're like, let's go, let's do this. Like,
Well, if I don't do that, then if I sit down, then I was like, okay, we're done.
At any time, Chitra's ready to party and ready to sleep.
Ready? Yeah, either one.
Either one.
I'm glad you said that though, because that was kind of my question, Chitra. Just listening to your story is like, it sounds like the way that you were raised in these immigrant communities and like these all these cultures that came together, like immigrant culture, Midwest culture, like all the things that you listed, it shaped you in certain ways. And I wonder how often you reflect on that and how you see that environment that you grew up in, like coming through in your priorities, like your personality, what's important to you, how you raise your kids. Like, how do you see that manifest?
I don't know that I really stop and reflect on it too much. Maybe I do when I'm like getting upset with my kids or something. And I was like, why aren't you? I didn't do that. Like, but hindsight being 2020, like we forget that we were like probably dipshit teenagers and stuff too, right? Who knows? But I think it's more like the things that I will, put my energy behind or my headspace behind. And I actually had a friend of mine we were talking about stuff this weekend. And she was telling me that she's impressed with the fact that I don't like, I'm generally good with staying away from drama. And I was like, okay, I'm like, I just don't have the energy for it and the patience for it. So like, it probably wouldn't come out right. I just can't like get into the circle of it in terms of like, following up on gossip or this or that. Right. And it's a funny way of talking about it because I'm like, I think that's the type of stuff that like when I go back, I'm like, okay, the way I grew up was more like, well, there's some things that are, temporary and you just do stuff. And then some things that you invest your time and energy in. And even when you invest your time and energy, like maybe they're there, maybe they're not. And I think that took me a lot longer with people to be like, the people you might be close to now might not be the people you're close to later, right? And maybe they come back, but like it's all like, moments in time, and it doesn't have to be like this bigger thing. You don't have to sit there and be like, hey, how do you have your BFFs for life? And and focus all your energy on, do you have this, do you not have it? And whatever. I think, to that point, like our house, I think I said this in the last podcast, so we always had people at our house and like, we didn't know, like, are you here for like a day or a week or a month or whatever. And sometimes people would come and like, there's like an extra kid at like Christmas or something, right? And then one of our gifts is like, oh, they'll grab it from us and like, okay, we got to give it to this kid who doesn't have something else to open. And I think at some point it's, it just becomes like a routine thing. Like you don't even think anything of it. You're like, okay, well, maybe I want it, maybe I don't, but it's nothing you have to like fixate on. And like, you're still like a kid. You're like, oh, well, you just took my stuff and gave it away to somebody. But it's like, you don't have to linger in those thought processes. And I think that's kind of where I think nowadays when I look at my kids, I'm like, well, I'm really proud when they kind of get that mindset of like, well, it doesn't matter. I have it now. I don't have it now. And, it's easy with all the things that they have to forget about, to not fixate on this stuff, right? Or figure out like what's actually important. And I was just talking to my kids about that too, saying, hey, look, you're going to have different friends groups, and that's okay. Not all your friends have to get along with your other friends. You don't have to worry about whether, you used to be closer friends with this person like 2 years ago and you're not anymore. And I'm like, that's just how it is. And like, it's okay. You don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't have to make them all get along. You can just figure out how to do it, but you should figure out like not to like create a situation that's hard for everyone.
Yeah, of course. It sounds like a very Zen outlook. Like, I don't know. I think
not
that's
really, because I'm very like, I go hot tempered and then I can like, I think that's the thing.
Oh,
I can get very emotional and very upset and be like very hangry.
But then it leaves you.
Especially
like
when I'm
evaporates.
hungry, get very hangry. But then
I
it's
can
like,
Do we
relate
have a
to that.
granola bar anywhere
Yeah.
in here?
it's like, let me take a nap or give me some food and then I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true though. It's just such a good outlook. Like I think particularly in times like these that we're all living through and like just environmentally, like it's so important to understand like you said, everything is temporary. And of course, like there is a time and a space to have those strong emotional reactions and to like have those deep reflective periods of like what is important to me, what's going to stick.
Yeah.
But like not everything has to be that.
No.
And it's okay to just like move through those things and allow like the ebb and the flow, knowing that like if you're ebbing, you're going to be flowing. If you're flowing, you're probably going to be ebbing. Like
Now, I will say growing up, I always still like loaded in like all the things I could do, which I do feel like I don't know where I got that from because I tried to figure out how do I instill more of that in my kids and I can't figure out the formula. But I used to do this. And like I remember in high school, they had this thing called early bird gym, which sounds insane. So I would go to school at 6:30 in the morning to get gym out of my schedule so that I can pack in these other classes because I really like taking all these other art classes. But then I also was taking all these other AP classes. So I needed to I didn't take study hall, I didn't take lunch and stuck my gym in the morning so I could do the extra art and photography classes.
that is like the epitome. Like that right there, that is Chitra.
Yeah,
in a
that sounds
nutshell.
like the ADD problem I have still, right? And I'm just like, sure, I don't have time, but I could do it. I'm pretty sure I could do it because I could stick it in between lunch and
I think every single person who knows Chitra right now is like ding ding ding
Yeah,
ding ding.
yeah, exactly.
She just defined herself.
Yeah, exactly.
so that has definitely been like a thing that has been there for a long time, and I don't know where it started
Or
and
how
it
yeah.
got there.
But this is a good kind of
I think so
transition
too, yeah.
into so I'm so glad you brought up the art piece because I would have forgotten to ask you about that. And I think all of us know you, all of the people who know you in our space know you as the technologist or the STEM, like a STEM person, but you love art as well. So I want to touch on that. So I'm glad it'll be a little, side note.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us, how you got into STEM. What made you interested in that, and what specifically were you like laser focused on in high school?
So I think 100% I was not laser focused on anything.
Mm.
And I was good at math. And for some reason, like if you had to like pick all the things, I decided I was going to be like in the math counts team. So I was like in the math nerd group. But I was also like doing like yearbook stuff and everything, right? I mean, so like I definitely liked math.
Mm-hmm.
I think it took me a little while to decide if like how I liked or if I liked some of the other sciences. So then I think probably in college, I started steering more towards where I was like, hey, definitely physics over like chemistry and things like that. But I was always like quasi in tune with like the STEM side of the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, more in terms of like math processing than other stuff, which is interesting because I think like my daughter, the youngest one's a little more like hands-on, so she tends to gravitate to like Legos and robotic type things more than doing like math properly on paper. So like it's kind of interesting to see how like everyone balances out on that front. But I've always been kind of stuck in that. Now when I applied to colleges coming out of high school, I think if I remember it right, I applied to like 11 different colleges for 11 different majors.
No way.
And
That's
it
incredible.
ranged wildly. So the program, I think that was my top one program, was I had this plan of going to Brown University, which I did not get into. But the plan was to go to Brown, and I don't even remember what my major was, but I picked some sort of math major, some sort of a STEM major. But they had this like joint program with RISD, Rhode Island School of Art and Design. So then I was like, I was going to do like this like part-time flip thing because they had this special program where I'd be a RISD student and a Brown student. But obviously I didn't get in. But that was one range of the spectrum.
Uh-huh.
And the other range was like, I think journalism at NYU and chemistry at Berkeley.
No.
So like I was like literally all over the map. And when I applied to RIT, I applied for their fine art photography program. And that's the one I decided to take the acceptance for, which of course was not floating well at home. Because I was like, I had a plan there too. My plan was go to RIT, do all this stuff. And then there was this program at Brooks Institute where you couldn't get in until like you finished 2 years of college. And that was out in Santa Barbara. And then I was going to go be a photographer and go work for National Geographic and like save all the animals, right? It was going to be perfect. But then again, my parents were like, it's not really a career. They were really not happy with it. But they were okay with me having sent that acceptance letter out. And when I was weighing out the things, I think there were 9 out of the 11 I got into. And somehow I was choosing between like the chemistry program at Berkeley and that photography program at RIT. And they were really, really trying to like urge me.
Chemistry.
Yeah. Well, my mom was still like pre-med, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I'm going to do pre-med anything. But then I went to I decided I'm going to do this. And when I went to some summer thing, I was like, all right, I went and did like these open houses and I learned about imaging science. And I was like, oh, like I really still don't understand what this degree gets me, but it seems like you can do artsy things and sciencey things. So then I decided to go do it. And it literally, I think it was like when we graduated, I was like, God damn it, I think I'm an engineer above all things. But I was like, all right, that's fine. I'll deal with it.
Oh my
But
gosh.
that's how it all came. It's like complete accidental happenstance.
So were you thinking, I mean, I know it's hard to put your mind back then, but like, were you thinking, because all of those programs are completely different,
Yes.
right? It's like life sciences and like art and engineering. Were you just thinking, well, I'll put it in the universe's hands and whichever one I get into, then that's where I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, I just didn't really have that much of a plan in that sense. Like, I mean, in my head, I was like, oh, if I do this, then I can do this other thing. And I had set up like that ideas across all of them. But I'm just like, well, obviously you can't be like, 11 different things at once. But it sounded like, I was like, well, yeah, if I get this one, then I'll figure it out. And I don't remember what my thought process was when I kind of called through the list.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly on the Berkeley side that they were saying at that time that the chem program was the toughest one to get into. So I was like, since I really don't know what I want to do, let me just apply to the one that's harder to get into. Which, like you said,
Said no one ever.
I know. Most people would be like, what's the easiest thing I can do until I can figure my shit out?
Yeah. So definitely a little different. But then I think when I started visiting schools, I think what attracted me to the ones that I liked and the other ones were like where I got into like big lecture halls and like the professor's like this tiny person way down there. I'm like, I can't see the boards. I can't see anything. And I'm like, I have no clue with like how these 1,000 people in this room like learn something.
Yeah.
I think that was to me like the big difference is that the smaller niche programs were more interesting to me just because I was like chatting with like the actual teachers differently. And so maybe it comes back to that thing. Like just came down to like there seemed like interesting people that were doing something and seemed fascinating. So I was like, all right, I'll do this program.
I have a kind of a meta question.
Do it.
So like Chitra, when you talk about your interests, you are interested literally in everything. And you're not blowing smoke about that, right? Like you are genuinely, you have this like genuine curiosity about the world. And I think like the way that your mind works is so unique and eccentric and I mean that in the highest, like the highest compliment. Like I think I would say that about Carmen as well. Like no one's brain works the way that Carmen's brain works. And I would say the same thing about you. My question is like, what does it feel like inside Chitra's brain? Like what is your, like, I know this is a really hard question to answer, but like, what is your experience? Like being interested in all these things and like integrating them and like moving from one thing to the next. Like, how does that feel for you?
I really don't get like a whole lot. It sounds like when I talk to other people, I feel like a lot of people like get anxious on my behalf.
That's really really great way to describe it.
Perfect way to
Yeah.
answer.
And I'm just like, I don't know why this is such a big deal. Like, I was telling you guys, like, we're possibly moving, and one of the things that I want to do over the next like 5 years, that I've got this idea of me learning to be a hobby beekeeper. Sounds insane. It sounds totally insane, right? But I'm just like, okay, well, for some reason I'm fascinated with this thing and with this like the way of thinking about the honey. And maybe I was like, maybe it'll help with like the allergies for like the dogs and for like anyone at home. And I'm like, I don't really know if it makes sense. I am actually also like not like happy-go-lucky around bees. So I'm like, why do I want to do that? But it's kind of fascinating. So in the same vein, I think like there's a lot of things out there that I find like interesting, and I'll like kind of like noodle through it, and then I'll put it like in the back somewhere, and then something will trigger like the thought process again. I'm like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I like this thing, and I'll start working. So it's never like a thing that I feel like, oh, I had to like start this idea and this thought process and then take it to completion. I'm okay with just being like, oh, here's a random interesting thought, and like, okay,
If it comes
and then
back, then
if it comes
yeah.
back, that's fine. But I've got these other like 20 things that I've already said I'm going to do, so let me finish doing that, and then it's it sounds odd, but it's kind of comforting to me to be like, and relaxing, just to like be like, oh, let me just bubble through lots of random ideas. And maybe it's the same as like, channel surfing on your TV or something.
But
You're just
we're channel
my
surfing in
head.
her head.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, that sounds like a good one. Let me stop here for a little bit.
Incredible.
That should be your new code name.
I like that
Channel
a
surfer.
Channel surfer. That's so good. I think what I love about the way that your mind works, though, is that like they are different channels, but they also like intersect at interesting points. Like
all
whatever
things.
your interest is in the bees is like manifesting itself also somewhere when you're like thinking about AI.
Yeah.
Like it's like fluid too. I don't know. It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating.
Yeah. That's why I like emerging tech stuff, because it's just like, oh, I didn't think about this weird thing in that way. Like, oh, that sounds fascinating. Let me dig into it.
So great. Another great transition. So what's really special about you in relation to the documentary is that, everyone in the documentary has worked for the intelligence community, but you're the only one that was solely like contractor throughout her career, right? But has worked on some really cool stuff, like as cool as it gets inside the IC. You've got to work on those types of programs, right? So that's what is really cool about you, in relation to the other women. And I think it's important because I think people outside of our community think, the only way you can work on this cool shit is if you're in, right?
Yeah.
But you're the proof that that's not the case.
Yeah, and I think like to me, it's like similar to like the channels, I guess. There's so many things happening everywhere that I feel like definitely the advantage I got was like breadth, both in terms of like mission stuff that everybody's working on and contractor base. So like, the personalities and the things that drive the different entities in the contractor base, how they all come together, and the variety of the missions, right? So there's generally a couple core things that everybody is focused on, right, across the DoD and IC. But overall, you're like, hey, look, there's a lot of differences and nuances between how any one organization works versus the other. And I feel like I've had a lot of luxury in having been able to like see and interact with people and really get kind of good hands-on with a lot of the different types of programs and activities that exist. And it's always been a curiosity of mine, like why people don't try to find more breadth. Because for me, I'm just like, oh, well, what are you doing over here? Let me dig into it. I'm like, I'm curious about this. And that seems a lot like this other thing over here. And, tend to have this curiosity, I think, is the only way to describe it. And some people are like fine kind of
In
doing
their
a thing
silo,
and
yeah.
then going home. And I don't think I was ever good with like work-home separation.
Your mind's
and
always
balance,
working.
right? So
Well, let's back up just a little bit, because I'm wondering, like, how you even thought, about working. Was it you when you were looking for a job, was it the job you were looking for, or was it the community you were looking for? Like, oh, I
when
want to
I
work.
first got in the community?
Yeah, was it like I want to work for the IC or DoD, or was it like that's a cool company doing cool stuff, I want to do that?
No, again, like I think it's just all happy accidents, right?
Yeah.
I think so. In my junior year, or I think it was junior, or either junior or the beginning of my senior year. At that time, so NEMA, the predecessor to NGA, that was really like DIA and CIA components for the most part. The NEMA folks actually did a lot more kind of regular interaction with our imaging science program on campus. And so there were folks coming up to do like a recruiting event. And so just like any other recruiting event, then like, it's a small niche program. So we all put our resumes in, talk to the folks. And it seemed fascinating with a whole lot of nothing that they could tell you, right? Yeah. And at that time, so this was like, I graduated in 98. So, good heyday of the .com boom. And I think what we were all doing is it was almost like a little game for ourselves, as like all of us were like, well, how many interviews have you got flown to? It's like you get flown out to interviews, right? Because that's what was going on. And it's like, oh, I got flown out for a couple of days over here and over there. And like, we're all comparing like the mileage we're racking up on like interviews and all the crazy things that were going on at that time. And then, of course, you look at it, the agency comes on site to our building, does their interviews in our little like, school setting. And then I got this offer letter in the mail. And so when I rack and stack everything, I'm like, I think again, similar to probably my parents' reaction when I said I'm going to go to school at RIT. I was like, I'm going to take this thing that tells me a whole lot of nothing about the job and is the lowest paying job offered.
Aren't you proud, Mom and Dad?
They were like, have you considered...
I'm making great life choices.
Have you considered photography? You'd probably get paid more than working at NEMA.
It was funny. But I think, so my dad was always an engineer, right? So I think for him, even like, and probably if I say by extension, like all the uncles that we grew up with, I think all the engineering minded folks like kind of thought about it because like they had background at things like Honeywell, and my dad retired at his last job was at Sikorsky before he retired, and they all had like some affiliation. I'd say none of them were cleared to do anything, but like they could all imagine, and in their minds they're like, yeah, we're doing special government things too, but you're not. But it's okay because they were all like kind of had this mindset. And so it didn't matter that there was nothing really on the paper describing anything of any real value for them to figure out, like for anybody to think about like what this job offer was about. But it was, in their mind, like, hey, they could think of it as like proud accomplishment from like an engineering feat perspective, right? And so I think probably I had a similar view of like, I don't know what this is, but it's got to be interesting. And so I'm going to say okay to this job offer. And then like, and I've told you this in the previous podcast, right? So then even though the clearance division got everything all done, they forgot to tell my boss, or there was some sort of mishap in communication. And then I came aboard as a contractor through Lockheed instead of a government employee. But that's how it all came to be. And it's not like I was looking for it. I actually was trying really hard to not go down the remote sensing path. Again, lots of common threads in like previous decision making. But there was some work that we had done at school on things like one of my professors, he worked extensively on the Dead Sea Scrolls on doing stuff where they were pulling out the underwriting. And so it was like really fascinating. I'm like, I'm going to do this type of stuff, like with museum restoration and all that. There's no money in the museum doing imaging science for museum restoration and stuff. So I was like trying really hard to not do these things. I worked for like this small medical device company for a little bit. But at the end, I was like, okay, look, I think because I'm studied imaging science and I'm basically an engineer, it seems like the way this was all thought out was really gearing towards this part of industry. So I'm like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And then went down the remote sensing path. But turns out it was like super fascinating. So it's okay. It turns out you don't have to know all the things and have an idea what is on the other side of the fence.
So thank you for listening to a special episode of Iron Butterfly Podcast, which ventures inside the world of our documentary, The Power We Hold, Stories from Women Spies. We might be coming to a film festival near you. To follow along on our journey, follow us on YouTube or Instagram, or visit our website at www.ironbutterflymedia.com. And if you like the show, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Stay fierce, and we'll talk next time.